All right, now we're going to get into some cruise news. Cruise travel documentations for 2026. Most international cruise, especially those visiting foreign ports, require a valid passport book with at least 6 months validity beyond your cruise. So if you're cruising in January, your passport needs to be good until the end of June or July, depending when you sail. So make sure that's one thing you really need to check before you get ready to sail. All right, many cruise lines strongly recommend passports, even on closed loops, starting in the same U.S. port. Like say if you went out of Port Canaveral and then you returned to Port Canaveral, technically you do not have to have a passport. You can sail with your driver's license and your original birth certificate. That's the one from Vital Statistics, not the one with your baby's footprint, okay? Has to be the original birth certificate. Passport cards are useful for Caribbean, and Canada and Mexico sea travel, but are not valid for international flights if you have to fly home unexpectedly. So say you were in St. Thomas or Cozumel and something happened and you had to go to the hospital and miss the cruise. Now you got to figure out how to fly home, and if you don't have a valid passport book, you can't have the passport card to fly. So that's one caveat if you don't have the passport. All right. Now, for non-U.S. citizens, they may also need a valid visa or ESTA if entering or returning to the U.S., depending on their nationality. Okay, so cruise line, the identification for boarding. Cruise line, check your travel documents, your passport, visa, ESTA at embarkation. If you don't have the required documentation, you may be denied boarding and you could lose your cruise fare, because they're not going to refund your money because of your foolishness, okay? Also, visas and travel permits for ports of call out of the U.S. So say you're traveling to Europe, okay? If your cruise visits countries where visas or electronic authorizations are required, ETIAS for the European beginning late 2026, you'll need to apply well before your departure. Some nations, states like Canada, Australia, UK have their own ETA or ETIS visa system separate from the cruise line check-in. So let's do a real recap. All right, for flights, valid passport. For international travel, real ID or alternate approved ID. Passport is acceptable for U.S. domestic flight, ESTAs or other entry authorizations for visa-free countries you're visiting. Enough ID vitality. Check your passports at least for 6 months. Valid for cruise, valid passport with significant vitality, your original birth certificate, and your driver's license, depending on where you're. And make sure you always check your cruise line documentation, because they may have more requirements that you need to meet. And when you're cruising, make sure you do your online check-in before you get to the cruise port and you have your documents ready. This is Nikki, Effortless Travel. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to help.